Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
How does Islam view intersex individuals?
So intersex, let's look at it from a biological perspective. Intersex is known, and it's been known for forever. And the books of fiqh talk about intersex. They call it khuntha mushkil, meaning this person's gender is, their biological sex, let me say, is ambiguous. Why? Not because of behaviors or feelings, because of the physiology. Meaning, there are cases where a man has certain organs or certain physiological traits of a female, or vice versa. And this is known in the biological, in the medical community. Right? Most of the time, those people will live a normal life and have absolutely no idea that their body has certain parts of the other gender, right? Unless they have some sort of medical scan or some sort of medical, CT scan or whatever to unveil that. So that's what's meant by intersex as a medical term, as far as I've learned. Now, within that intersex is a subgroup called hermaphrodites. And so it's like if intersex is, 0.1% of human population or even less, hermaphrodites are 0.1% of that 0.1%. So it's an extremely rare case. A hermaphrodite is somebody who visibly has both genitalia of both genders, of both sexes. So they have the genitalia of a man as well as the genitalia of a woman. And it's not clear which of the two they are. So the scholars in fiqh, they talk about this and how we engage such a person, what are their rights, what are their responsibilities, where do they pray in the masjid, are they allowed to mix with men or mix with women and whatnot? How do we resolve that situation? And the first attempt to resolve that is to look at which genitalia is functioning, right? Because it could be just one genitalia is functioning while the other one is not. It's kind of just there. It's more of a deformation of the body than actually. But let's say that both of them are functioning. What do you do then? A decision has to be made, right? And there's a way of, I guess, the medical experts will go about determining which one they are. But until then, they are this exception where we're not going to consider you a male or a female until we figure it out. Not you have the choice to be whatever you want. So intersex in Islam doesn't mean gender fluidity. It's a biological thing, it's not a psychological thing.
To follow up on that, how would they know what gender to live by?
Well, that's how we're going to figure it out. We're going to look at it in terms of biology, not in terms of psychology. This is where the whole LGBT stuff is really rooted in our times today. It's rooted in psychology, which is very different than our history previously.
So since there's such a small percentage of people.
Yeah, people want to come and say Islam endorses gender fluidity by using this. No, it's not. And we're looking at this from a biological perspective, not a psychological. That's number one. Number two, this is such a rare case. You cannot create an entire category of gender because of a tiny, a super tiny portion of human society.
Should we take Ayah 60:13 as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us not to ally with LGBT people?
Well, I'd have to look up chapter 60, verse 13.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتولوا قوما غضب الله عليهم قد يئسوا من الآخرة كما يئس الكفار. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying, if I'm remembering the precise verse, is that all you who believe, do not follow the people who Allah is upset with, right? Who Allah's anger is upon. And when it comes to how do we determine Allah's anger is on someone? Well, earlier in the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if the people aren't aggressive towards you, they're passive they're neutral towards you, or maybe they're even friendly towards you, we're not prohibited from building relationships with them. The people who we can say, we can suspect that Allah's anger is upon them are those who not only are doing what is clearly haram, but they're also being aggressive towards us. These are the people we're going to say, look, between you and I is a big gap. I see you as an enemy because that's how you're treating me. It's not that Muslims go about who's my enemy, where's my enemy. No, you are attacking me. You are seeing me as an enemy. You're behaving in a way where you have taken me as an enemy. It makes no sense for me to go and say, yeah, let's be friends. It's not going to play that game.
Right? So it really depends on whether they're being aggressive, friendly, neutral.
Yeah, and so it's not a blanket statement, right? It's rather on an individual case. So again, Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet, who was a mushrik. You have another uncle of the Prophet, Abu Lahab, who was a mushrik. So look, they're exactly the same. Uncle, mushrik, polytheist. The Prophet treated Abu Talib with a lot of love. And Allah in the Quran actually mentions this. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. You don't guide the one you love. He's talking about Abu Talib. But the Prophet, he fought against Abu Lahab, his uncle. Why? Because Abu Lahab was attacking the Prophet. He created that dynamic. He created the war. And if you're attacking me, it is part of my human right to defend myself and to push back against you. So Allah comes and says, Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab. May Abu Lahab perish.
Can we assume this applies to LGBT allyship? And if it does, are we affirming that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indeed angry with the LGBT people?
So generally speaking, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very upset. He was very angry with the people of Lut. Why? Because of their behaviors. So when we see somebody doing similar behaviors, it begs the question, Allah is upset with these people. They're doing the same thing. But again, just because I believe Allah is angry with a person or Allah curses a person, that is not enough for me to attack them. It's a very important point because people conflate this, right? So I think if I hear somebody say, or an imam say that Allah is upset with the modern day LGBT community, I wouldn't, push back against that. I'd say, yeah, that's probably true. But what does that mean in terms of how I interact with them? That's a whole different story, right? So do we build allyship with them? As of now, where we are today, I'm talking about literally today, not a few months ago, not a year ago, I'm talking about today. The LGBT lobby has aggressed against us, clearly. And Allah says, don't follow those people. Don't take them as allies. So I think the Muslim community needs to create a distance, a gap, a healthy gap. Say, look, you are transgressing against us. You need to stop. If you don't stop, that gives us the right to respond. Of course, respond in a wise way and in a legal way, right? So we're not going to promote violence or attacking them or discriminating against them. But we have the right to do that. Right? It's unfair for them to be able to do whatever they want with us, to sexualize our children, to say that, well, we're going to take your children away from you and convert them, without us having the right to respond and protect our who we love. Right? It doesn't make any sense. But that's the narrative they're trying to create. So right now, today, I would encourage Muslims to really not enter into allyship with them. Now, if a person enters into a space that has nothing to do with LGBT in of itself, but LGBT are coming to that, that's a different thing. You're going there because of something that's permissible, right? Women's advocacy, or a coalition against domestic violence. That's why you're going there. You're not going there because of LGBT, nor is that meant to promote LGBT. But the LGBT community have this strategy of putting themselves everywhere. Anywhere that something's going on, they want to kind of put themselves, force their presence on people. So I'm not going to say being part of that is haram, because it's not meant to promote LGBT. But to ally with LGBT in a way where it gives them some influence, some say, some ability to promote their behaviors using Islamic or Muslim campaigns, right? You'll find that the LGBT community is one of the strongest supporters of the Palestinian cause. Right? Now, if they show up at our protests, we can't stop them from doing that. But for me to go and intentionally build an allegiance or an allyship with them, an alliance with them, to help me in that cause, no, I'm going to say we don't want to do that.
So from what I've seen, it looks like, they're kind of saying that they're being oppressed. Would you say that they're kind of creating the oppression?
No, no. I want to say they're creating the oppression. No doubt there has been violence against them, but that doesn't justify what they're doing. It's like Russia. These guys, the Nazis killed 20 million Russians back in World War II. That gives us the right to attack Ukraine. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. If you're upset with the Nazis who did that to Russia, which is horrendous, go to Hitler's grave and take it up with him. Not with these guys. Until they aggress against you, that's a different story. But that didn't happen. So just because you have certain grievances and you feel like you've been oppressed before, I didn't do that to you. You can't come and now put me in this scenario or this case. That's an aggression against me. That's a transgression. That's an injustice to me. Right? So the narrative that they're creating, or the lobby behind LGBT is creating, is pinning broader society against them. And they've crossed the line, man. These are children, infants, man, infants. Can you imagine this? It's disgusting. I'm sorry, it is disgusting. It has to be called for what it is.